I'll be showing you how I made this cute dress. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So here is my fabric. I'm just going to fold it right sides facing, and this end will be open and the other end will be unfold. To determine how you're going to fold your fabric, that's going to be 1/4 of your bust circumference plus 4 inches. So mine was 8.5 plus 4 inches, which gives me 12.5. So that's going to be my starting point. From the starting point, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches for the elastic casing. So 1 inch for the elastic band and 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance. And I'm going to mark that all the way around. So that part is going to be unfold because that's the casing for the elastic band. So from that line, I'm going to determine the length of the first tier. So the length of the first tier is going to be 11 inches, and I'm going to add 1 inch for the sewing allowance, which gives me 12 inches in total. I'll mark 12 inches all the way. The next thing would be to determine the armhole for this off-shoulder dress. So this is an off-shoulder dress, and we are assuming that 5 inches has been taken away for the off-shoulder effect. And I'm going to place my 5 inch at the starting point, just like this, and then I'll mark my armhole measurement. Mine is 8.5. So I'm just going to place it right like this, and then I'll mark 8.5 all the way, which is my armhole measurement. The next thing would be to determine the 1/4 of our bust circumference. Mine is 8.5. I'm going to place it on the line for the elastic band, just like that, and then I would connect it to the end with my French curve, just like this. And then I would extend the line to the top as well. So that's where we're cutting out. So we are cutting out. So remember, that's the starting point. So we are going to start from there while cutting out. So that would be the space for the elastic band later on, and it will be unfold. And here is the armhole. So this is what it should look like later on. And we need 2 of this. So I would use this to cut out the other piece. 1 for the front and 1 for the back. So I'm just going to lay this right size facing on another fabric in order to cut out the back piece. So we would have 1 for the front and the other for the back. So this is basically the first tier. So we need to cut out the second tier, which would be double the width of both the front and the back of the first tier. So what I'm going to do is I would fold my fabric in half, just like this, so that it's easier for me to cut out. So the width will be double the width of the first tier, both the front and the back, and the length will be 15 inches. And then I'm adding 1 inch for sewing allowance, making it 16 inches. I'll mark that all the way. So once we're done, I'll cut out the front piece, and then I'm going to use this front piece to cut out the second piece, which will be the piece for the back. So I'll lay this right sides facing, and I'm going to use it to cut out the back piece. So this is the front piece and this is the back piece. So the next thing would be to cut out pockets. I want the dress to have pockets, so I'm just going to use this to cut out my pockets. So I'm going to fold my fabric again, so I'm able to have 4 pockets in all. 2 at one end and 2 at the other end of the dress. And I'm going to use my hand to trace it just like this. So these are all of the 4 pockets cut out. And we are going to begin the sewing. So this is the first tier. I will lay the other side of the first tier together on it, right sides face, and then I would run a straight stitch at the 2 sides. So once we are done, this is what it looks like. The front and the back pieces have been joined together, and we need to add the second tier to this. So here is my second layer, which is 15 inches long. We need to insert and add the pockets. So I'm going to mark 5 inches from the top. So I'll mark 5 inches from the top, just like this. And then I'm going to insert or place the pockets right sides facing, just like this. And I'll pin it down. And I'm going to run a straight stitch to hold it in place. I'm going to do the same for the other side as well. I'll mark 5 inches from the top, just like I did for the other end. And then I'll place the pocket right sides facing on the second layer, and then I'll run a straight stitch. So I'll do the same for the back piece as well. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to place it down so you can see it properly. So the pockets have been placed, and we run a straight stitch to hold it in place, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to join the back piece to the front piece of the second tier, just like this. So right sides facing, I will join this together, and then I'm going to pin it down, and I'll show you how to run a straight stitch on this. So once this is pinned down, we are going to run a straight stitch, and we're going to come like this all the way around and then back to the end. We are not going straight. We're just going to come in a curved manner. So I'll show you on the sewing machine right now. So this is the pocket, just in a curved manner. I would run it all the way around. Until we get to the end. Just like this. Now I'll do the same for the other side as well. And this is what it looks like. The pockets have been inserted, and this is what it looks like. I'll show you the other end as well. And we basically have a circle already. So I'm going to introduce the first layer in order to determine the width of the first layer. So I would check whatever that is, and that would determine how I gather the second layer. So I would run a basting stitch at the top all the way around, and then I'm going to use that to gather the second layer based on the width we just determined. I'm going to set my stitch to the longest stitch in order to run a basting stitch. So once this is done, I'm going to gather the second layer, and this is what it looks like. I've gathered this based on the width of the first layer, and then I need to join them together now. So I'm going to turn the first layer inside out, and I'll tuck it into the second layer, making sure that right sides are facing. So that's the pocket area. I'm going to pin it down to the side of the first layer, right sides facing. And I'll do the same for the other end as well. So what I would do is to keep gathering this evenly, and then I'll pin it down and then run a straight stitch to hold this in place. So I'll run a straight stitch all the way around, and once we're done with that, we'll have to take out the basting stitch we ran initially. So this is what it looks like. The second layer has been sewed to the first layer, and this is the side with the pockets, and that's the other end as well. So the next thing would be to join the third layer to this second piece. So we also need to determine the width of the second layer, and that would determine how we gather up the third layer. So here is my third layer. The length is about 23 inches. I have about 4 of them. I'll join them with a straight stitch, all 4 of them. And by the time they are all joined together, we would have to form a circle later on. So I'm going to join all of the 4 pieces together in order to have one long piece. And by the time we are done, I will join the end of the long piece to the other end of the same long piece, if that makes sense, in order to have a circle. So I'm going to join this together in order to have the circle formed. And by the time we are done doing this, I would run a basting stitch on this circle. So I'll show you later on what I mean. So this is the third layer. I just gathered it up based on the width of the second layer. So the next thing would be to turn it around in order to have the right side out. And then I'm going to turn the first and the second layer inside out. And then I'll tuck it in just like I did for the first piece. So right side facing, I would pin the ends or the sides together. And then I'm just going to pin this all the way around and make sure that the gathers are evened up, are gathered up. So here is what it looks like after it's been sewed together. So we literally have a long dress without the sleeve, from top all the way to the bottom. The next thing would be to insert the sleeves. I would introduce the sleeves and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So here is one of the sleeves. I would lay it right side facing. I'll pin it together and I would run a straight stitch. And I'm going to do the same for the other sleeve as well. So by the time we're done sewing, we need to determine the armhole. We're just confirming that the armhole we have for the dress is also the same with the armhole for the sleeves, so that it's easier to match them together. So I'm going to match the armhole for the dress to the armhole for the sleeves, right sides facing just like this. So I'll pin it down together and then I would have to go run a straight stitch. So I'm just going to run a straight stitch right there, and I'll do the same for the other sleeve as well. I'll run a straight stitch. So this is what it looks like. Everything has been sewed together, the sleeves, and we have our complete dress. But we have to hem the top part a little. If you have a serger, you could serge it, but I'm just going to fold it twice, very tiny, and then I'm going to run a straight stitch to hold it in place so it doesn't fray. So I'll do that, and then I'm going to show you the next thing to do. So I just hemmed it all the way around. The next thing would be to create the space for the elastic band. So I'm going to create the space using 3/4 of an inch. Since I used up some space for the 1 inch seam allowance we left for the elastic band, so I'm just going to use 3/4 of an inch. I will do this all the way around, and by the time I'm running a straight stitch, I need to create a space or leave a space where the elastic band is going to go through. And by the time you're done, the next thing would be to hem the bottom part of the dress, and we're done. So here is what it looks like. I've created a space for the elastic band. I would use my pin to insert the elastic band while pinning the other end to the dress just like this. So I would insert this all the way around until I get to the end where I would have to run a zigzag stitch on the elastic band just to close it up. Before closing the end we left open, and we are done.